in here. So CMS is actually predicting over 600,000 Part B clinicians that are going to be subject and participating in MIPS this year. So the MIPS program is actually going to be affecting quite a bit of our fellow population, and really looking forward to in the future is making sure that we can accommodate for all of those solutions. Just a friendly reminder for anybody that tried to avoid learning about MIPS. The first performance period opened up January 1st and will be closing on the 31st. So we actually already are supposed to be tracking and working towards our best performance in the MIPS program. Again, just doing a little bit of housekeeping for anybody that has somehow been able to avoid taking a look at MIPS on a very high level. So MIPS actually looks at 4 categories. So your quality category is taking over for our PQRS, and it actually makes up the bulk of your score. It's going to come up to 60% of your overall score. Next, we have our improvement activities. This is a new one for us this year, and these are supports broad aims in healthcare delivery, including care coordination, population health management, beneficiary engagement, stuff like that. Usually it comes out to about 4 measures per group, and it comes in at 15% of our overall score there. So for our advanced care information, this is going to be our MU replacement. This is going to be our second highest scoring category underneath quality. And its objective is advancing care information and focus on secure exchange of health information and the use of EHRs. And the last one that we kind of always continue to reinforce and remind people is going to be our cost categories. This one people tend to forget because for 2017, it actually does not get calculated into your overall score. However, each year it's going to provide a greater and greater against your overall score, up to 30%. So multi-specialty practices are a little bit different. Usually in order to meet the business needs, changes in the electronic systems need to be made. So we've seen that frequently this does then result in groups utilizing more than one EHR or electronic system. We've also seen happen is because of the tedious job of tracking measures, groups often that are limited to the number of measures that they have select a common measure in order to meet this need over the multiple specialties. And that's where this idea of topping out in these measures has really turned out. Because groups are all selecting the same measures as well as performing at their highest quality on them, we're seeing this new concept of topping out. So it's much harder to actually achieve those 10 points that measures are eligible for. And we actually see a total of 94 measures that require 100% in order to actually get that 10 points. And then even just taking a step down, 90% or greater, there's 108 measures that require it. So what does this actually mean is we need to be a little bit smart when we're selecting our measures. Clinicians performing at peak benchmarks score between 5 to 8 points. And I just took a quick sample set of just some of the commonly used measures that we see, and you can easily see across the board that 5 to 8 point range varies quite significantly. You can see with our diabetic eye exam, you have to score 95.96% to be on the low end of that 5%. And you can see for each one of these, that 10 points is going to put you in that 90% or higher range. So with our benchmark solution that we'll get into in just a moment here, one of the big things that we focused on is really optimizing people's scores and being able to compare your performance back to those benchmarks so you can start tracking in real time your scores and understanding where you're going to actually fall. So for our multi-specialty practices, the MIPS solution, again, we'll get into that in just a minute, supports all 243 quality measures, which becomes really important because we no longer have a limited set that we need to focus on. Our selection can be a lot more wider range and really take advantage of some of those measures that we have some flexibility on those benchmarks. We're going to have the ability to compile data across multiple EHRs. So the solution is actually meeting towards people's business needs versus making practices fit the needs of the tool. It's really important that we're able to take a look at solutions for individual versus group reporting. That is a new concept this year, as I'm sure many of you have been made aware of, and being able to see what is the best performance solution for your group. We're going to already keep track of our financial category. This, again, it becomes very important in sequential years that we are performing really well in that cost category. While it might not matter in 2017, the fact that it grows each year is something that you don't want to just wait into that 2018, 2019 year to really start focusing on. For our larger groups, it's really important that we're able to provide a solution that's going to provide reports immediately when you need them. There's not going to have to be a lot of manual process in order to extract this information and to get out to the practitioners in real time. Being able to then take this information and actually do something with it to improve those scores is, of course, additionally very important. So providing those gaps in care reports. And this actually meets two needs. It's going to help with our quality measures and performance measures. But when it comes to our improvement activities, we can then include this in our chronic care management and other areas in order to meet that measure as well. So it becomes really a dual purpose here. We talked a little bit about what our solution needs to meet and some of the challenges that we need to focus on. I'd like to take a moment and actually show you our tool here. Please bear with me while I switch screens. All right. So when you first log into the CareOptimize MIPS solution, you immediately see your organization's performance across the 4 measures. So of course, just as we spoke about, you have your quality, cost, advanced care information, and your improvement activities. Each category displays the total points eligible from CMS directly, as well as your performance scores for each category. On the left-hand side, you can see here that the scores are combined for your composite score. Now, while we are going to keep track of your costs and we are going to display it on the right-hand side, your composite score for 2017 will only include the 3 categories that go into that total score. So how the application actually works is for each category, you can actually select and explore your performance in that area. So if we first take a look at the quality measures, you can see your selected primary measure set. One of the things that we work with groups when they come onto the tool is to actually sit down and go through your previous year's performance and seeing how that would affect your overall MIPS score, taking into account benchmarks and total points. That way that we can actually select the best primary measures that's going to provide the highest level of performance scoring. But we all know keeping track of additional measures can be really important. These may not be the ones you end up reporting on, but when we look at the end of the year scores and calculate your total scores, we absolutely want to make sure that we're reporting on your highest scoring measures. So within the application, there's actually these information buttons that will provide extra information on how the items are calculated or actual definition of the item. So it makes it very easy for any user that comes into the dashboard to get a quick definition and not have to go to 3 or 4 places in order to get information. So for each measure, it will display your current performance and scores, as well as how you're doing against the CMS benchmark. You're also going to easily be able to see and identify your inverse measures. Again, just making it a visual representation to easily see how you're actually performing. So from here, we can actually select and drill down even further. It's going to take us to all the patients that qualified for this measure. And if we actually select on an individual patient, we can see each measure that the patient qualified for. For each measure that the patient qualified for, we can actually see why the patient either passed or didn't. Again, this information is being brought real time from your EHR, so it's going to display the exact information of why this patient, and not just that the patient failed. If we take a step back and return to our quality measures here, you can also view your performance against a cost category. Again, this isn't going to matter for 2017, but it will get you ready for reporting for 2018 and on. This is going to come from your live claims feed. So next we have our advancing care information. It's going to display the 5 base measures, and they actually come up to 50% of the overall score for our advanced care information. And then below that, it's going to have our performance measures that are being pushed from the EHR, and we'll display the results that count towards the composite scores. And lastly, we have our improvement activities. Again, this is that new category from CMS this year. Most people are going to be selecting about 2 to 4 activities for a total of 40 points. And we do give everybody the ability to select from the full list of relevant activities for your practice. And then as your practice works towards completing these items, the ability to come in and mark complete or pull from the EHR, depending on the measures. The question always comes up with how are we going to track our group's performance and make the decision whether we're going to report as a group or as individual providers. So the MIPS Solution tool actually makes it very easy to start tracking individual providers' performance. So we're going to take a look at our providers that are actually participating in our MIPS program. So you can see already we can easily view our providers and their performance in the MIPS program. We can also track our highest performers as well as our providers that are going to need a little bit more help. From here, you can actually drill down into the provider's performance, and they have their own dashboard of reporting. It looks very similar to the group side. It will display their performance over the 4 categories as well as the individual provider's composite score. So we needed a solution that's going to be very easy to not only view this information, understand it, but also get it out to the people that need. So you do have the ability to print these reports. We call them scorecards, and it's going to display either on a provider level and the practice level the performance over the 4 categories, as well as view their composite score. This information, as well as a patient gap list, can be exported and provided to practitioners, as well as support staff to really focus in on areas that need some additional improvement. All right. So our MIPS tool is supposed to be very user-friendly and very easy to use, but there's a lot of work that goes into this on the back end. So usually the process to actually set you up with the MIPS solution goes a little something like this. So in the initial phase, we actually partner with you to select your measures. And a lot of discussion will go around how performance was last year, as well as your current state workflow. Again, we are pulling from your actual workflow in the EHR, which for a multi-specialty group becomes a very big asset. It's no more of a, you need to put it in this field in order for us to pull out the data. We're going to sit down and actually go through your individual workflow and find out what areas your providers are accessing and where they're putting in this information to really make it as user-friendly as possible for them. We're going to set up a flat file transfer that's going to come into the dashboard. And that initial phase will work with you to just do some initial validation. And what becomes very important with this is anytime you have any kind of upgrades or any additional customization, we'll work with you to make the changes so we make sure that the data being reported is correct. In the initial phase, we're going to do some end-user training. That way, everybody that's going to be accessing the solution does have a clear understanding of how to interact with the dashboard, as well as to get the information out so that we can really make the change. Finally, at the end of the year, we are going to automate the attestation process. So we're going to do some additional validation with you to make sure that the final selection of measures is going to provide you with the highest level score possible. And that's where those additional quality measures start to come in handy. We're going to also automate the attestation process to be able to provide you with those bonus points, but also to make the process a lot more smooth. So we do have 2 options available to groups that are interested in our MIPS solutions. We have the full service. That's going to be the full end-to-end, really working with you to make sure your practice stands out and is on the higher level, making you eligible for those bonuses. The other option that we do have is a product only. So we'll still work with you to set up the solution, but your internal teams will go ahead and take the reins with optimizing your performance. I always do like to talk about this. As we get closer and closer through the 2017 year and people kind of get on board with realizing MIPS doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon, we do have people reach out and ask, how is MIPS going to affect me? So we do offer to everybody who is interested, we're happy to run a free solution, and it's going to run a report just comparing information within your EHR and actually provide a report that's going to show how MIPS will directly affect your practice. There is financial implications, as everybody does know with MIPS. So actually being able to see those numbers to really understand, what actions that you need to take with our MIPS solutions. So on that note, I do want to put out both my information as well as my contact with Jonathan Shivers of our group. If you have any questions either regarding our dashboard or are interested in having our State of the Practice report run to see how MIPS is going to directly affect you, please don't hesitate to reach out. And then Jan will post this slide afterwards, but it does include at the end just some additional resources from CMS of information out there to get your practice more ready for MIPS and how it's going to affect you. All right, thanks, Jan.
All right, great. Thank you, Megan. As Megan said, we are recording this webinar, so that recording will be made available to everyone who registered, and that will be within the next 24 to 48 hours. And thanks, everybody, for coming. Have a great afternoon.